1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, capitalism and innovation that once promised a rising tide that lifts all boats has done the complete opposite. It has skewed the power and control to centralized players like that of America and the Magnificent Seven, wherein 7 of the largest tech companies all around the world, like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, etc., are all fucking American companies. And sure, the world has been kinda nice with their existence, has posed a lot of risk, especially since now we are shifting away from a unipolar world to that of a multipolar one. And that characterization is what motivates our side of the house to say that in this world reset, wherein we are going to have AI and the future of tech and other kinds of things, since that's pretty much where it's going, to largely be semi-profit as opposed to this capitalist shit show that we have seen, which has harmed people, it has created overvalued corporations, and ultimately has made it less accessible. We think slow and steady wins the race, and we think that what happens on side opposition is essentially a huge bout of overspending and redundancy, that what we've seen in status quo, meaning this illusion of the invisible hand and expecting market forces to be able to solve and help our problem is all but an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. We think that through decentralization, wherein anybody can be able to access these particular things and be able to have more of a collaborative open source model, can only be done when we have this world reset, wherein people aren't blinded by purely capitalist intentions. We have somewhat of a particularly fair balance. Because when we understand that, because their side might say, well, Joseph, you have competition, innovation, China, India, all of these markers and players being able to come in. The question I have is, really now? Because what happens is often a delay wherein you expect the first mover to do all of the work and then you try and attempt to do something better. But let's take a look at the lens of where we are with AI now. A lot of what has touched the consumer are just LLMs. We have all of these things which to an extent do the particularly same thing. Case in point, China's DeepSeek, that was kind of ass, kind of hype. And we think that on the contrary, when it's semi-profit, we're able to balance profit incentives and at the same time still push the frontier more. And it's not just this whole cookie cutter approach wherein you copy what happens, hope it works, and try to go to market like what we've seen with AI. The comparative on side opposition is going to be particularly clear. We think they have to be able to do a clear accounting in terms of how exactly status quo or this purely for profit would be particularly better than our particularly new model. We have to understand the nuance to AI is that a lot of these particularly developed countries who essentially are able to do it essentially are able to decentralize that power. Meaning in our world, when you lower the barrier for entry for all kinds of corporations and all players of all sizes to uniquely be able to take part of this particular model, wherein more people are essentially able to come in, especially at the point in which they're likely to do it better. This particularly looks like being able to have cap limits for round funding, whether it be through private equity or venture capital. Being able to essentially bootstrap a business is done a bit more carefully and not just this whole, oh my gosh, everyone's going to be able to do it and you pray and hope it particularly works. We're essentially going to have a more focused and a more deliberate particular intention in terms of being able to decide whether or not you're even going to go into this business, which actually is able to actually foster the right kinds of software engineers and computer science majors and individuals who want to go to it truly for the right reason. Because they know, yes, of course, we need money to be able to keep the lights on, but at the same time, being able to develop and grow a project has a particular trajectory. I'll take the POF closing opposition. Go for it.
How do you think that the quality and efficacy of AI is going to be maintained when AI requires large data storage, and without data, AI cannot learn itself, and large data storage comes with large amounts of investment only?
Yeah, sure. But we think that we're now going to be able to do it better and smarter, wherein we're able to, of course, still use that particular profit to be able to actually manage and cost cut better, as opposed to building all these fucking abundant data centers everywhere. Everyone's like, oh yeah, we should near shore. No, far shore. And then you end up having like ghost towns and cities like what we saw with the rise of crypto, wherein everyone is trying to be able to build a crypto farm in the mountains because it's cold. And the same thing we're starting to see with AI, wherein not just with NVIDIA, but even mid-sized and other players in India, China, and even in Asia are now being able to like ride the hype, albeit late, and start trying to be able to build these data centers, thinking that there's going to be a demand. But like what the CEO of Microsoft and Google were essentially saying, we essentially are over speculating and over demanding to the point that we've also had an oversupply, which essentially make it particularly harder. The impact and push from our side is quite simple. We are essentially going to talk about the harms of this purely for-profit model as opposed to the comparative. The first is, we think that you essentially have a redundancy and particularly waste of resources at the point in which the narrative becomes, let's throw in money, hope some stick to the wall, and people essentially fail fast without necessarily putting guardrails which we need in order to be able to do it better. Second point, exactly on those particular guardrails. We think that regulators and individuals are now able to have a more nuanced perspective in terms of who players we are here to be able to actually regulate. Because on the comparative, when you have a winner take all and you have at worst singular monopolies or at best a monopolistic oligarchical kind of competition, it becomes significantly harder to be able to check those individuals at the point in which they become so big and they have clout over you. When you're able to manage these mid to smaller sized companies better, it becomes easier to be able to put those guardrails at the point in which they don't have all that leverage and power. Thirdly, and most importantly, being able to understand that this happens in a timeline. Ironically enough, when we're able to like lower this particular incentive, we allow things to be more open source and collaborative, wherein people are able to build, yes, slower, but it's done in a more careful pace to prevent AI from going out of hand. There's a lot of uncertainty that can happen to the technology. Ironically, on our side, if we are able to do it slower but more steady, we're able to capitalize on the latter part of profit and latter part of human development, which precisely motivates our side of the house. We are very proud to open this debate on side proposition.